Hi folks, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like this is actually a follow-on from the Bud Light video I did earlier today. And I was going to include this segment in that video, but for some reason I overlooked it. This is when I was in the corporate world. This is where we were, if you like, reviewing or interviewing or looking at the pitch that various advertising marketing agencies were making to the company. Now, it was a decent account we could offer, a decent, I mean, it wasn't huge, but say between $300,000 and $500,000 for the year. So it wasn't chump change, but it wasn't, like some big multinational firm that's spraying money in all directions. But anyway, we got we sat down. We were going to review 3, but ended up reviewing 5 companies. 3 was going to be enough, but we had another 2 sort of contact us and say they wanted to throw their hat in the ring. So okay, fine. So we made a day of it. Had sandwiches brought in and just sort of kept on going. And each one typically needs between an hour and a half and 2 hours to make their pitch, or so they told us. So a lot of that's just bullshit and fill-in stuff rather than the serious meat. But so they come now. This is the bit that I sort of want to come to. I got roped in. We had the VPs. I was one of the VPs, and we had like a rotation system for these sorts of things where we would each get a few turns a year or a quarter to attend these sorts of things. So anyway, it was my turn and another guy. So I think we had, I think it was 3 men on our side, 3 men and 2 women. So they came in. There's again 5 organisations now. I think 3 of the 5, 2 women came to do the presentation, and there's 1 woman, and 1 guy on his own to do another. I think he might have come with a very junior girl who didn't say anything, just sat there and watched. Maybe she was a trainee or an intern or something. But so the thing that strikes you straight away with this, and this is a serious sort of thing now, we gave them a written brief, which I was part of writing the brief. So we want, I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but we want something that's going to materially assist the business. So we want to see, we're selling products here. We want to sell more product, and we want to get a better brand image, and there are a few things that we're wanting to achieve. Some that are immediately measurable, some less so. So you have to tell us what you're going to do for us. Why are we going to hire you guys, and why will that help the business? I'm simplifying it a little bit, but that's really the thrust of it. So now, when the first lot turned up, it was two women. And if you went to Central Casting, said send me a blonde bimbo girly for marketing, they would have sent you these 2, which are a bit like the girl in the thumbnail on this video. They had shorter hair though, and more of a sort of a Karen type hairdo. But they came along, and the fake blonde hair. They had quite tight-fitting clothes, plunging neckline. There was no short dresses from any of them, so that was important, I think. To me, being professional is important in this sort of setting. Sure, if you're out at a nightclub or you're out dating or you're hanging around on the beach or something, that's different. But this is a professional setting. It's serious. Pretty decent chunks of money are going to float around, and it's a serious gig. Now, they didn't seem to be thinking that, though. Why would you send 2 ill-equipped, over-promoted, underqualified, blonde, girlies to do the pitch? There was hardly a single question they could answer. They were quite adept at evasions and those sorts of things, but there's very little that they could directly answer. They were there to do just a superficial dog and pony show, and that was it. And they've been directed to do that. That's what they've been trained to do. So, but they couldn't act or operate outside their training or what, like Pavlov's dog, they've been told to do. So they got up and did their little presentation. Now, before they started, I said, okay, this is what we want you to do. Focus on what you're going to do for us. We're not interested in the fluff at the margins, and get straight to it. And so they looked and sort of nodded with a funny blank expression on. This is, I'm thinking of the first one here, blank expression. And then they pulled out. They want to do like a PowerPoint presentation, a bit of a video, and went straight to doing fluff. What their address was, what floor they are on the building, how they've got, fantastic harbour views, and this and so they were doing sort of broad image type stuff, and they were, now that may have suited a huge multinational, multi-billion-dollar organisation, but the size of the business we were, like below 100 million, then that's sort of the wrong pitch. But they didn't look at that. They didn't ask the sort of questions that you would have asked. We provided that information. They did ask some questions, and we said, look, we've provided that to you in the information sheets. And they looked at each other and didn't know what to do. And then they got flustered because each thing they did, they had no answer for, or that they didn't seem to know what they're doing. So sending ill-equipped people out. So when we had questions, direct questions, well, what will you, what are you, if we use this method you're suggesting, what are the results you've got generically around it? Have you got, do you get a million more units sold, or how long, what's the time frame, to how did if this is going to happen, then what after that? And they just didn't have the answers. They just looked puzzled at each other, even to the point of thinking, well, why are you asking us difficult questions? We're only here to sort of do the dog and pony sizzle act, when we were emphatic that we wanted certain things addressed, and we wanted we wanted solutions and answers and programs that were going to that could be implemented and measured. And they seemed confused, like they just didn't understand it. So they had no business sophistication. They had no understanding of business. They had no concept of responsibility for outcomes. They were just even though they were women in their late 20s, maybe a couple in the early 30s, they behaved like little children just run around playing with toys, and that was their pitch in effect. And this was consistent throughout. So each one of the woman who came on her own was a little bit older and did I think do a better job of presenting the position, but it was still all vague. And then we'll put you on to our account manager, and our deputy account manager will be assigned, and then our executive account manager will. Oh fuck! I don't care about that. I want you to deliver results. I didn't say that at the meeting, but now this is the thing about whether we look at it in sport and the girls' US soccer team can't beat a bunch of old blokes and this sort of stuff that the 500 in the world men's tennis player can absolutely blast off the court the women's Wimbledon champions. And this is the same sort of thing. So the guy who came last, by the way, the guy came last. He was on his own. He was an older guy. I'd say he was probably late 30s, and he'd read the stuff we sent him. He was prepared. He said, "Okay, I've read your stuff. You want me to get straight down to." He'd read the stuff we sent him. He was prepared. He said, "Okay, I've read your stuff. You want me to get straight down to business, and you want this, and you want." Yep, that's what we want. So he came prepared. He was organised. He'd done his homework. And not that there was much homework to do. There was only a couple of pages to read. I mean, it wasn't like there was a vast amount of work, but none of the women had done it. Or if they had done it, they just thought, well, we'll just airy-fairy it out of our heads because it's not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about airy-fairy things because that's all we can do. So the guy was straight on the ball, got down to business. Yep, well, if you do this, no, I don't think that'll work because our statistics on that suggest that that you only get 1%, but on this other thing it gets 10%, and this and that. He had the questions we asked him. He had the answers. The girls had none of the answers. Couldn't answer anything. And the more questions that we asked that they couldn't answer, the more flustered they became, and then the more they fluffed other things. So the guy came, the guy who by the way was really not much better than a journeyman in a lot of ways, but compared to them, he came across as a hard-bitten industry expert. And now, interestingly, one of the girls on the panel that I was on, she sort of took an approach where the most embarrassed and the most unqualified girlie that came in, that she wanted to give the account to her to help her because she was so unqualified and so useless and incapable. But that was all girls together. She was an affirmative action appointment herself. So she saw a world of affirmative action where the least qualified person should be the most highly rewarded, because that creates equity, which is a very girly sort of, take on the world. And she disliked the guy the most because he was so capable, so competent, so confident, so self-assured. He had all the answers and so on. So she sort of naturally hated him because he was at the opposite end of the spectrum of what affirmative action is. He's a guy who will achieve in his own right and based on his credentials. And she had a natural disinclination to accept that because it was a worldview that would not include her, being, again, an affirmative action flunky. The other woman was sort of mixed. She did like the guy's pitch, but I think she liked one of the women's, maybe the woman who came on her own. I think she liked hers. But the guys were all unanimous. The only person who came today who knows what they're talking about is that dude. So we'll go with him. And now, it could have been very different. You have to ask, or I did it, why did the women not read the material we sent them? Why did they not read it? Why did they not come prepared? Why did they do the opposite of what we asked them to do? Why did they not have answers to the questions, many of which were included in the documentation we sent them? So why didn't they prepare for that? And now, their bosses bear some responsibility for this, so that needs to be taken into account. But it was a pathetic presentation, in my view, that addressed none of the issues that we wanted addressed. They prepared to address everything, it seems, other than what we wanted. And again, had no answers to the technical questions. Also, the sheer mechanics of if we do this, how will that play out in this regard? We have similar product lines here, so we don't want to steal sales from product line A and just transfer it to product line B, because then that's no net gain. And the guy could answer that question. I know what you mean. Yep. And he could answer. The women just looked. The jaw dropped. The tongue came out, and they just looked, and it was like they couldn't even comprehend the question. The other thing too, I remember from that was how the women would half listen. The guy was careful to listen and respond to what we said. The women would half listen and respond to a straw man question that we hadn't asked, or would deliberately misunderstand. I thought maybe this was some sort of defense mechanism, pretending not to understand. Because if you pretend not to understand, then you don't have to be responsible or accountable, and that's very much a sort of thing that I've noticed working with women over the years. So we would make to 10% of our, for example, 10% of our product are left-hand screwdrivers. So that's an issue. Then a few minutes later, the woman said, "Well, you said that all your products are left-hand screwdrivers." No, I said 10% of the products are left-hand. Oh, so it's still the most though. No, it's 10%, 1 in 10. Oh, well, you said this. No, I didn't say that. And and that sort of unnecessary aggro in the meeting was simply the woman trying to duck and dive and weave and go under the table and do anything she could to avoid having to be accountable. Because when you're dealing with facts and it's straight on and it's pass or fail, that's raw accountability, which terrifies most women. and certainly did these marketing women. Now, most marketing departments that certainly I see or come across today, including marketing agencies, still the sort of the blonde girly bimbo is ubiquitous, just everywhere. And you've got to wonder how some of these places ever make money. And you've got to wonder about some of these marketing departments, how they ever can do squat, let alone come out with coherent, cogent marketing plans and programs. And on balance of probability, I'll just go off on a sidebar here for a moment. There's one of Australia's largest firms, and we came in to do some work which happened to indirectly involve the marketing, and they wanted to sort of buy into the process, really, because it's a big bureaucracy, and they wanted to buy in the process to make sure that their power and influence wasn't being eroded or something like that. So it's very, very political, personal power projection bullshit, rather than any real need for them to be at the meeting. And we were there, and there was a bunch of women, early 30s sort of age range. Again, the fake blonde hair and the Karen type haircut and everything. And so we just thought that the juniors from the marketing department had been sent in because these people weren't sophisticated. Far from it. They were quite basic and snotty, but nice. They're snotty, but they've got beautiful smiles, great teeth. They all have too. They've got that sort of marketing smile and so on, and the reassuring little girly giggles that they put out. But we just thought they were the juniors, and there must be like the executives in the marketing department didn't bother to come, and so some of them were handing out their business cards. And we're looking at going, holy fuck, executive vice president of marketing, you've got to be kidding me. No, I wouldn't employ you to sweep the floor, for fuck's sake. So it goes to show the standard. And I don't believe that it would have been any different in my opinion, would have been any different at Bud Light or that Anheuser-Busch firm. So, but that's just a little thing of what it's like to be at in a marketing meeting, and the quality or the low quality and low caliber of sort of folks that appear. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.